Look like Wnba Stewart and Sabrina Ionescu has broken their silence about this massacre they team just had.
The reigning champs just got torched on their own floor, and what happened after the final buzzer was straight up headline material. Sabrina Ionescu and Wnba Stewart stood in front of the media after taking a 14-point loss, and instead of dodging questions or pointing fingers, they did something nobody saw coming. They gave Caitlin Clark her flowers. No excuses, no ego, just pure respect for a player who flat out dominated them. Their post-game comments made it crystal clear. There's a new force shaking up the league, and her name is Caitlin Clark. So what do you think? Was this genuine praise from two seasoned stars, or just damage control after getting lit up by the most talked about rookie in basketball?
The performance we saw from Caitlin Clark today against a team that started off the season 9-0, a team that is the defending champions, might have been the greatest women's basketball performance we have ever seen. That might have been the greatest showing from a WNBA player we have ever witnessed. That was spectacular. The shots she hit in this game, y'all, were something like I've never seen any other women basketball player ever come close to hitting. There are NBA superstars out there that I have not seen have a game with that.
Let's put this in perspective, because context is everything when greatness recognizes greatness. The New York Liberty came into this matchup as the defending champs, sitting comfortably at the top of the league, with the Fever struggling in recent games and Clark just returning from a 5-game injury break. They probably expected to cruise to another win. Instead, they got a full-on basketball masterclass, and Caitlin Clark was the professor. She stepped back on the court like she never left, dropping 32 points, dishing out 7 assists, and putting together a highlight reel that could easily headline a Netflix special. It wasn't just a comeback, it was a statement. But here's what really stood out. After getting humbled by Clark and the Fever, Sabrina Ionescu and Wnba Stewart didn't make excuses. They didn't sugarcoat it. They gave Caitlin her flowers loud and clear. That's not just respect, it's recognition from two of the league's biggest stars that Caitlin Clark isn't just back. She's the real deal.
Like, we go on runs, they do as well. They're a great team. So I don't think it's defeating. I think obviously we know what a great shooter she is, and I think we just gave her too many easy ones. Obviously she has great range, and her ability to get her shot off is really impressive, especially with missing some games. And so obviously on a personal level, I'm really happy to see her back out on the court, healthy, feeling good, because obviously it's important for them. But
when asked about Caitlin Clark's performance after missing several games, Sabrina Ionescu didn't hesitate. She gave credit where it was due. She praised Clark's shooting range, her ability to get clean looks under pressure, and how effortlessly she created space to get her shot off. That wasn't just sportsmanship, it was a top-tier player recognizing another elite competitor, even after being outplayed on national television. But Sabrina didn't stop at the usual post-game compliments. She genuinely expressed how glad she was to see Clark back on the court and healthy. Her exact words? "On a personal level, I'm really happy to see her back out on the court, healthy, feeling good. Obviously it's important for them, but just for her, I'm happy she's back." That's not something you say about a typical opponent. That's respect. That's admiration for someone who's clearly a special kind of talent. The most revealing moment, though, came when Sabrina admitted they gave Clark too many open looks. And when a shooter of Sabrina's caliber says your shots are nearly automatic, that speaks volumes. Because if there's one person who knows how dangerous deep threes can be, it's Ionescu. And her recognition of Clark's ability to hit from long range, even under pressure, says more than any box score ever could. Wnba Stewart took a different but equally respectful approach. As one of the most decorated players in the league, a multi-time champion and MVP, she had every right to shift the narrative toward team miscues or questionable calls. But she didn't. Instead of deflecting, Stewart faced the moment with honesty. She admitted what was clear to anyone watching. On that night, they were simply outplayed. No excuses, no distractions, just a veteran giving credit where it was due.
Reaction with one another. Stewie's laughing. Caitlin knows it's ridiculous. Just out there having a good time with it.
Wnba Stewart's body language spoke volumes that night. When Caitlin Clark pulled up from the logo and drilled a 3 with Stewart giving her space, there was no anger, no frustration, just a smile. That moment wasn't lost on her. It was the kind of reaction only a true competitor gives when they recognize greatness in real time, even if it just landed a blow against their own team.
We had our moments. We got back into the game. We had that run when Stewie was guarding Caitlin Clark, but then they executed well. And, we had so many breakdowns on defense, and they made shots. They really punished us on that end, making, 17 threes from 35. It was just too wide open. So
the defensive lapses Wnba Stewart pointed out weren't just random errors. They were the direct result of Caitlin Clark's gravity on the court. When a player can consistently pull up from well beyond the arc and make it look effortless, it forces the entire defense to stretch unnaturally. That's exactly what happened. The Liberty found themselves stuck in a no-win situation. Focus too much on Clark, and you leave her teammates wide open. Try to guard everyone, and Clark burns you herself. And on this night, they failed to contain either. What made the post-game comments even more powerful was the backdrop of this so-called rivalry narrative the media's been pushing between Clark and other WNBA stars. Instead of falling into that trap or throwing shade, both Ionescu and Stewart chose honesty over headlines. Their reactions were grounded in respect, not rivalry. The stats back it all up. Indiana lit it up from deep, with Clark at the center of it all, drawing so much attention that her teammates had a buffet of open looks. And when you leave pro-level shooters wide open, you pay the price. Stewart even admitted that the Liberty leaned too heavily on their stars, trying to keep pace with the Fever's offensive eruption, a sign of how much pressure Clark places on opponents just by being on the floor. Liberty head coach Sandy Brondello echoed that sentiment, refusing to offer up excuses. No mention of missing pieces or questionable calls, just a simple truth: Indiana played better and made the shots that counted. That kind of honest acknowledgement from a championship caliber coach shows just how real this performance was. Defensively, the numbers were brutal. The Liberty allowed 102 points to a team that had been offensively stagnant without Clark. A staggering 53 of those points came in the first half alone. That's not a fluke, that's a total breakdown, driven by one player disrupting an entire defensive system. Sabrina Ionescu's post-game reflection added another layer. She noted that basketball is a game of runs, but admitted this wasn't just a momentum swing. It was a full-on execution clinic by the Fever. Indiana didn't just get hot, they stayed hot. That kind of consistency is what separates a lucky night from a dominant one. The shooting disparity told the story loud and clear. The Fever hit 17 threes. The Liberty just 20% from deep. That's not random. That's what happens when one player draws so much defensive attention that everyone else eats. Stewart's comments on team resilience revealed just how deeply this loss stung. The Liberty see themselves as championship contenders, yet they openly admitted how Clark's tempo and playmaking shook their foundation. When title favorites start talking about needing to self-reflect after a blowout loss, it speaks volumes about the kind of impact Clark made. The fast break numbers were even more telling. Indiana generated 19 transition opportunities, an area where they'd recently been struggling. That sudden shift, all Clark. Her pace, vision, and ability to push the ball before the defense could completely flipped the script. Stewart acknowledged how tough it was to keep their own rhythm when they couldn't get stops. Ionescu also admitted that when the Liberty can't flow into transition offense, their whole game plan suffers. Their system is built around getting stops and capitalizing quickly, but Clark's relentless scoring made that impossible. She didn't just have a good night, she dismantled their entire team identity. The free throw numbers in this game only added insult to injury for the Liberty. Even with more calls going their way, they couldn't match Indiana's offensive rhythm. Wnba Stewart admitted they struggled to get to the rim, something that speaks volumes about Caitlin Clark's impact. Her deep shooting threat kept defenders stretched so far out that driving lanes vanished. The Liberty's defensive strategy became a chess match they couldn't win. They tried everything, switching on screens, throwing zone looks, even attempting to deny Clark the ball altogether. Nothing stuck. When a top-tier coaching staff cycles through every defensive option and still can't contain one player, that's when you know you're dealing with someone who's operating on another level. Stewart's comment about knowing who we are hinted at something deeper. This wasn't just a tough night, it was a reality check. Coming in as defending champs and league frontrunners, the Liberty walked out unsure of whether they're still the team to beat when everyone's healthy. There's also a global angle to consider. Both Ionescu and Stewart have played for their countries on the international stage. They've faced elite talent from all over the world, which makes their respect for Clark even more meaningful. They know greatness when they see it, and they made it clear that Clark isn't just a rising star, she's the real deal. Sabrina's focus on Clark's shot creation really hit the mark. What sets the elite apart isn't just their ability to knock down open looks, it's being able to create and hit tough shots with defenders all over you under pressure and with the clock winding down. Clark did that all game long. Those defensive miscommunications Stewart mentioned weren't just bad luck. They were triggered by Clark's movement, decision-making, and tempo. She forced the Liberty into uncomfortable last-second choices, and most of those turned out to be wrong. When one player has an entire defense scrambling, even championship teams start to unravel. Clark's return didn't just lift her team's energy, it completely shifted the pace. The Liberty usually control the tempo, but this time, they were chasing it. Clark forced them into an up-tempo game that played right into Indiana's hands. Stewart acknowledged that shift, a subtle nod to how Clark controlled more than just the scoreboard. She dictated the entire game flow. This wasn't just a hot shooting night either. Clark made smart decisions, picking her spots perfectly, even when those shots looked difficult. Ionescu's recognition of that nuance shows her appreciation for what makes an elite scorer truly dangerous. The impact Clark had on team chemistry was impossible to miss. As soon as she returned, Indiana's offense clicked again. Players who had looked out of rhythm suddenly started hitting their stride. Stewart noted that this was bigger than individual brilliance. It was about how one player can make everyone around them better. Ironically, the intense pressure the Liberty applied to Clark only made things worse. The more attention she drew, the more space her teammates found. Stewart admitted they gave up too many wide open looks, and it all started with Clark's gravity on the floor. That's what separates her. It's not just her stats, it's how she changes the game for everyone else. Post-game, the strategy breakdowns became even more apparent. The Fever didn't just come to play, they came prepared. They found holes in New York's usually airtight defense and exposed them, and it was Clark's court vision and decision-making that brought that plan to life. Every time the Liberty tried to swing momentum back their way, Clark responded. Whether it was a deep three or a perfectly timed assist, she kept Indiana in control. Stewart recognized that. She's seen plenty of great performances in her career, but this one stood out. One player had taken over the game and left no doubt who was in charge. And the stat sheet. It wasn't just one category, it was a full-on takeover. Clark didn't just light up the scoreboard, her 7 assists were a clear sign of how she raised the level of play for everyone around her. Sabrina Ionescu's post-game comments highlighted that fact. She didn't just see Clark as a scorer, she acknowledged her as a complete player, someone who influences the outcome in multiple ways. That's the kind of impact only the truly elite bring to the floor. And the bigger picture? Breanna Stewart and Ionescu both knew this wasn't just another regular season game. Losing to the Fever with Clark back in the lineup changes the entire narrative about who really holds the crown in the WNBA. That's not the sort of statement you hear from defending champions unless they mean it. But what really stood out was the tone. Their reactions weren't bitter or dismissive. They were full of genuine respect. Both players made it clear they had just witnessed something different, something rare. A performance that reminded the league and fans why Caitlin Clark isn't just a good rookie, she's a generational force. Giving credit after a tough loss isn't easy, but Stewart and Ionescu didn't shy away from it. They chose to be honest. They could have blamed the refs or pointed to defensive lapses, but instead they simply said what everyone watching already knew: Clark earned every bit of that win. That's the kind of response that doesn't just show sportsmanship, it lifts the entire league. When championship caliber players tip their cap to the rookie who just ran the show, you know you've witnessed something unforgettable. What's your take on their classy reactions? Did they handle the loss with grace, or should they have come out with more fire? Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit that like button, and don't forget to subscribe for more WNBA content that keeps it real.